so welcome to episode 2, I guess is this now, of our Geek Chat TV. Rob, you kindly did the editing last time, which was very good. I'm really impressed.
The sync was out, so...
Well, still good. We've got someone else with us today, Gav, who's a fellow Geek Chat person. And yeah, we're only going to have a main discussion point this week. But we've thought about the different things we talk about, but I think the thing we're going to talk about today is like console wars and see obviously for the years how they've gone and what one's been better. So Rob, if you want to start off, you've got some things to comment on.
Let's start at the start. What was your first console?
Well, the first console I ever had was a Nintendo, a NES entertainment system, whatever it was, and that was the first thing I ever got really brought up on playing games.
And that was my first console.
Yeah,
I had a computer before that. But...
Yeah. Did you play games on your console, or a computer, or?
Yeah, I mean it was all Pac-Man and Psycho Shopper and Mickey the Bricky, them sort of games. But
yeah, Mickey the Bricky, that sounds like a great game.
Yeah, Frogger, I think I had.
I think Frog was, that's still going now. I'm sure it's still going out now.
Did anyone ever experience console wars though? In the early days, I mean, obviously you had the NES, and that was going up against the Master System, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Do you ever? Was it because we were just young and didn't really understand the whole thing back then, or because I didn't ever remember going into school and saying, "Oh, my NES is better than your Master System."
No, I don't think I did. No, I think a major thing when it wasn't the NES. I think it was actually when it got to Super Nintendo and Mega Drive, when I got a bit older, that people started making comments on like, mine's better than yours or whatever, and it was that big number like 16-bit.
Oddly, when myself and all my friends all had a NES, and then there was one kid in school who had a Master System, everyone was more like, "Oh wow, you got a Master System," because it was just different to what we were used to. So in that sense, it was more, he was higher than us because he was the only one who had it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I guess it's exclusivity, isn't it, of having something different to everyone else. I remember playing on Atari Lynx. My friend had one of the Atari Lynxes, and playing on it was like a massive big pad, and it had no battery life. And he said, "Oh, can I borrow your Game Boy?" So I swapped it for a week, and I had it for like a day. I was like, "This is nowhere near as good as the Game Boy. Nowhere as fun. The games weren't good." But Master System and NES didn't really have that, did they? They were pretty similar games, sort of levels and things.
Yeah, I think if you come forward a little bit to now, I think back then, you had a lot more exclusives for the console.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you had, your Nintendo was Mario, the Sega was Sonic, and now I think they're a lot more exclusive. But now I think, you've got your Xboxes and your PlayStations, and they're pretty much get the same games on there.
Yeah.
It's very rare when you get a proper exclusive on a console, and even if it's exclusive for now, a year or two down the line, it generally will come out on the other one anyway.
The exception is probably Nintendo, who keep their exclusives pretty.
That's true, yeah.
Do you think it's more the developers though, isn't it? They're not like let's talk about Timefall. They're not going to lose their money next time they come around. They're not going to not bring it out on the PlayStation because it's just too much of a money to take from Sony not having it on their console. And I think they make a lot more money doing it on both next time. So they're not going to be that stupid and just take exclusivity on one console or one type of console, I think. But yeah, I think you're right. I think when we were younger, we did have a generation of sort of like, my Mega Drive was... I borrowed a Mega Drive for a week once from a guy called Dan Morgan, and I remember thinking, this is great, but after that week, I wanted my Super Nintendo back. It was just something about it I liked.
I don't recall... I'm slightly younger than you. I don't recall there being much rivalry even between Mega Drive and SNES. No? It was more... maybe PlayStation and Saturn kind of era.
So I never really thought PlayStation was so much better than Saturn.
I think I agree. I think when it got to PlayStation, that was really
the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, definitely.
It was so cool as well. It looked so much nicer than a Saturn. Saturn looked like a Mega Drive, but like a beefed up version. But a PlayStation was so cool like that. It was all nice and I don't know, it just looked nice. It was such a nice design, and still now I think it's one of the best sort of design consoles. Much better than the Dreamcast was. That looked quite boxy, but the PlayStation was quite nice. But yeah, I still think, like I said, I think when you're younger, it was just immaturity thinking games are better, consoles are better.
But why do you think people do have this allegiance to their console? What do you think sparks that in them?
Do you think people just pick one and that's it, or do you think there is?
I've got a theory.
Yeah.
It was a leading question, I have to say.
What was the answer?
My theory is that you spend all your time and money on this console, and you want to justify to yourself that you've made the right decision. And so you think, and so you back your own corner. So I've bought a PlayStation, I've spent £1,000 on the console and the games, and I've spent all this time. I'm not going to turn around and say, well, you've actually bought the wrong one. You know, you've wasted all your money. You should have bought an Xbox.
Part of it's familiarity as well, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
you get used to the certain pad, or you know that the game franchise that you like will always bring out a new game for the new system. So you kind of stick to what you know.
Mm. Do you think that's the same? Do you think that because Xbox haven't been around as long as Sony have? Let's be honest. Xbox have been around I know they've been around for 10 years now, but still.
Well, they've had 3 consoles, haven't they?
They've had They've had the first.
Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you, because you said you had a PlayStation when you were younger. You're obviously an Xbox man now.
Yeah.
Why did you change?
I changed. It was just really by chance. I think I told you this before. I got a free Xbox with a phone, and I took it just because I wanted it. I did have both at one point. I had an Xbox 360 and a PlayStation 3, and I remember having both at the same time. And they're both lovely things, lovely machines, great games. But I just picked the Xbox because at the time, and I don't. You can tell I'm wrong here, but I think the Xbox 360 had better games than the PlayStation 3, or PlayStation 3 was catching up with the Xbox 360. This time around, I think the PlayStation 4 have done so much better what they've done. It was so much more expensive, the PlayStation 3 as well. They were nearly twice the price of 360 when it came around, and I think that made a big difference for me.
I wouldn't say the games for the PS4 are streets ahead.
No?
There's not a big selection still out there, it's 18 months after launch.
Yeah.
But I think the early marketing of it and the slickness of it and all that sort of stuff really outdid the Xbox One.
Price had a lot to do with it as well, I'd say. Xbox come out and said, you've got to have the Kinect with it. It's going to cost £100 more than the PlayStation. Yeah. And they come out initially with this whole, you're not going to be able to swap games. Yeah. You're going to, once you've got a game, that's it. You can't trade that on anywhere. And obviously they sort of backtracked themselves on that in the end. But I think that annoyed quite a lot of people. And they decided to go with PlayStation then.
But that's where PlayStation did it right, because they really listened to the fans beforehand and delivered a gaming console for the gamers.
That is right, but I think the reason they did that is because last time when they brought the PlayStation 3 out, they didn't. They knew that PlayStation 1 and 2 was so good, they thought PlayStation 3, this is not going to fail, Xbox are not going to beat us. We'll bring out a PlayStation 3 at this price, at the time was so much more money, and it wasn't that great compared to the Xbox, and then now they've gone the other way around. They've like I said, they've listened to the gamers. They've done the right thing. And I do think, I think coming the next coming year, where Xbox have got the exclusives, I don't think they're going to get as much exclusivity on games that they had for the first year. Like stuff like Titanfall. I think there will be very less surprised if they get a good exclusive. But I'd like to say, going back to console wars, I mean, do you think going forward that there'll be anyone else to contend? Do you think Nintendo will come back into the ring and? Because the Wii U's obviously not done great.
I don't think Nintendo are as bothered as staying in that market as Sony and Microsoft are. They're happy to be for the kids and the casual gamers. It's not a serious gaming console.
It's not. Personally, I think they're still probably leading the way in handheld. Probably because
I agree with that,
probably because kids, serious gamers don't want to pick up something and have this tiny little screen in front of them. They want a big TV, and I think that's so I think the handheld is more directed towards kids personally, and I would like, from a personal level, Nintendo to stop making a console and just move to games, and so they can start bringing out games on next gen consoles.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Sega did that, didn't they? They stopped doing it, and they make great arcade games. Sega, they actually, they lead the way, don't they? I mean, there's nothing compared to Sega on arcades. But you're right.
I can't see Nintendo doing it. Though.
No, but there was word about last year they were going to bring games out on iPhones and Android, weren't they? They were going to release some of the older games on there.
Yeah.
They make so much money they did that, but they're not going to do it because they don't need to, do they? They don't need to do that, not yet anyway. But I would like Nintendo to come back into Strange just because I do miss some of the games when I was younger.
The trouble is, last generation, the Wii, the original Wii, blew everything away with sales and things. I mean, it was a colossal console.
Yeah.
I mean, as hardcore gamers, you kind of giggle at it.
Yeah.
But You know, that sold millions.
But they make most. What's those things they're doing now with the like little stands that they have like Nintendo Wii do? They have like all the what it's called. It's you know, you can buy little characters to sit on the stand.
Oh, Amiibos.
Skylanders. Yeah, I mean, they make loads of money from that, they don't. And that's Activision as well. That's not actually Nintendo, isn't it? That's Activision and Nintendo work together. So, but yeah, it's a bit of a shame though, because we were talking about ages ago about Nintendo. They made like a first-person Mario or something like that, something different. I think they'd get a good following personally. Yeah.
I just wish sometimes that Nintendo, although I enjoy playing Mario games, they just come up with something new. You know, do they have to just tack Mario onto every game, like Mario Golf?
Or Zelda, Metroid.
They're Zelda on like the umpteenth Zelda game.
Yeah.
Make a new hero or something. You know,
maybe they can't. Maybe
they seem to just rehash stuff.
I mean, what's the last thing Nintendo did that was new? That was fresh. Actually, I mean, it's not format-wise. It's nothing, is there? I can't think of one recently. Obviously, they changed with the Galaxy because that was like a 3D game, wasn't it? That was changed when the Wii came out. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. But going back, so you think Nintendo are better going forward just with handhelds, not with?
I think that's probably their market now. Although, as you said, the Wii U was a massive success for. The Wii was a massive success for them. They've tried to take that and just stick with the same format with the Wii U, and people have thought, you know, we've done this, we've been there, done that. I'm not gonna, because as you said, it's for the casual gamers, and improvement on graphics doesn't mean anything to them really, I'd say. So either they need to start competing with Sony and Microsoft in the proper gamer level, or I think they should just give in, personally.
I think history will show that the motion control thing was a fad for a few years.
Yeah.
And they hit it at that peak time.
Yeah. But obviously, like the Wii U, they brought that pad out because the touchscreen was quite a fad, wasn't it, at the time? Everyone was getting iPads and iPhones and whatever. They brought this pad that you could use your finger on. But it didn't do well at all. It wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy using that pad at all. I thought it was really clunky. The Wii U remote was so much better, personally, for what it was for.
You know, you wonder if Nintendo would be better off hopping on the fad of the Oculus Rift and
virtuality?
The next sort of big thing that's going to come out and doing something with that. I don't know.
But again, is that going to turn into a fad as well? I don't personally, unless you've got mind control, which I think is a long way off. Nothing's going to beat having a pad in your hand and.
No. Well, it still came with a pad, though, didn't it? We were playing it at the show, weren't we? You still had a pad in your hand, so I don't think it's ever going to come away. It was a good experience. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed what it was, but I just, like you said, I think it's a bit of a fad. I don't think until they can really incorporate in all games, it will become any good. But like I said, so really we're talking about consoles anyway. We've gone off topic again, but. Do you think that obviously going forward though that anyone else would compete with the two? Obviously not Nintendo, but do you think anyone else would have come out?
You've got Steam box coming out, Valve.
Yeah.
See what happens with that.
Because that would all download games, wouldn't it? It'd be all streaming games as well, won't it?
There's always a chance for Google to bring something out, I'd say.
Do you think they will? I mean, they did do all the Firefox? What was the Firefox phone? What it was called? They've got loads of.
There's a Ouija.
Is it
Ouija? I don't know. Handheld that played Android games.
Is it? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the one with the little pads. Yeah. That came out and that didn't do well.
Ouija, I think, something like that.
But I think personally, at the moment, I think Sony are winning the going. At the moment, they're winning the console wars with the fact that they've sold so many. I think people are going back to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft in a couple of years do something that will get people back on there. It would be to and fro, isn't it? It's always been that sort of thing.
Yeah, but in a sense, you've got to get ahead, if you see what I mean, because whichever console company has the best sales to begin with, those people then are going to tell their friends, they're going to buy more games, you know, and it kind of escalates from there. You can't. It's always going to be hard to come back. Which, you know, we'll see if Microsoft do a bit. They're not far behind.
No, it's not. I mean, but remember, like 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, Sega, Nintendo, Microsoft went around, Sony went around. I mean, Sony were going to work with Nintendo, and I mean, how scary that or different it would have been if they worked with Nintendo and went forward or whatever. But I don't think I just don't know. I just don't think anyone else can come close to them at the moment. I don't think we'll come too close to them.